She brought him home to meet her parents. They barely looked him in the eye. They told her to end it. Then, one terrifying night changed everything, and the man they rejected became the only person who could save their lives. Sarah Whitaker grew up believing family was everything. In their quiet Ohio suburb, traditions were sacred, appearances mattered, and the right kind of people was an unspoken rule everyone understood. When she fell in love with Marcus Taylor, kind, ambitious, steady, she thought her parents would see what she saw, a good man who treated her with respect and made her happier than she'd ever been. Instead, the first Sunday dinner turned into a masterclass in polite rejection, forced smiles, loaded questions. Later, the private conversation that cut deepest. "This can't work, Sarah. You know it can't." They called it concern. She called it prejudice. What happened next wasn't a shouting match or a dramatic ultimatum. It was a brutal storm, a fallen tree, a powerless house, and one man who refused to walk away, even after being told he didn't belong. This is a story about love that refuses to disappear, bias that hides behind good intentions, and the single night that forced a family to look at their own hearts. Let's begin. Sarah had rehearsed this moment for weeks. Not the words, those came naturally, but the feeling, the knot in her stomach when her father's eyebrows lifted just a half millimeter, a clear sign of disapproval. Tia. The way her mother's smile would freeze, her lips tight, her eyes darting to her husband for support. Still, she chose this day, Saturday, June 14th, 2025, to introduce Marcus to them. Marcus drove them from Columbus to Maplewood in his black SUV, with the windows down and old-school R&B playing softly. The mood should have been perfect, okay? He smelled like cedarwood cologne and the mint gum he always chewed before important meetings. Sarah reached over and squeezed his thigh. "You nervous?" she asked. He flashed that half-smile she loved, confident but never cocky. "Only about whether your dad's brisket is as good as you say." She laughed, but the sound felt thin, fragile. The Whitaker house sat on a gentle curve of Maple Lane. 2 stories, its gray siding, black shutters, an American flag hanging perfectly still in the June breeze. Her father's Ford F-150 was already parked at a precise angle in the driveway. As they stepped out, Marcus straightened his navy button-down and smoothed the front of his khakis. In his hand, he held a bottle of 2019 Cabernet from the Finger Lakes winery, a choice he knew her parents would deem classy. Sarah rang the bell, even though she still had a key. Her mother, Linda, opened the door, wearing her favorite floral apron, her blonde hair perfectly sprayed. "Sarah, honey," she exclaimed, pulling her into a long hug. Then she pivoted. "And this must be Marcus." "Mrs. Whitaker," he said, extending a warm, firm hand. "It's a pleasure to finally meet you. Sarah talks about you all the time." Linda's fingers barely closed around his, offering just 2 quick pumps. Come in, come in." Richards in the living room. Her father, Richard Whitaker, rose from his recliner like a man summoned to court. At 64, he was still 6'1" and broad across the shoulders from a lifetime of lifting engines. He studied Marcus the way he used to inspect trade-in trucks, checking for mileage, dents, and hidden rust. "It's Marcus," he said, his hand extending. His grip was hard, a test of strength. "Sir," Marcus replied, meeting the pressure without flinching. "Thank you for having us." They gathered around the dining table Sarah had known her entire life, set with the good plates white with the gold rimmed crystal water glasses. The brisket arrived steaming, accompanied by mashed potatoes, green beans, almondine, and cornbread, fresh from the cast-iron skillet. The conversation started safely. "How's the design job treating you, sweetheart?" Linda asked Sarah. "Good. Busy. We just landed a big campaign for a local brewery." "That's wonderful," Linda said, then turned to Marcus. "And you're in computers?" "Software engineering," he clarified. "Fintech. Mostly." "Fintech," Richard repeated, tasting the word as if it were poison. That's the one with the apps people lose money on. Marcus smiled easily. Some do. We try to make sure ours don't. Sarah let out a small laugh. Her parents remained silent. They navigated the main course with neutral topics: the hot June weather, traffic nightmare of the new bypass, and the universally agreed upon curse of Cleveland sports teams. Then Richard cleared his throat, signaling a shift. So, Marcus, where'd you grow up? Cleveland, the east side, mostly. East side. Richard nodded slowly. Good schools, public. In Case Western for my undergrad, and Georgia Tech for my master's. His credentials brought an impressed silence, but it wasn't a warm one. Linda jumped in, trying to steer the conversation. And your folks, what do they do? My dad's retired from the post office, and my mom was a nurse. They're still in Cleveland, active in their church. Church, Linda echoed, her face brightening slightly. What denomination? African Methodist Episcopal. Just like that, the temperature in the room dropped 5 degrees. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. Dessert was a perfect, warm apple pie with a lattice crust, but no one commented on how good it was. After coffee, Richard stood. Sarah, help me check the grill cover outside. The wind's picking up. She followed him to the patio, the sliding door closing behind him. He didn't waste any time. We raised you better than this, Sarah. Better than what, Dad? Dante, play dumb. You know exactly what I mean. She crossed her arms, her stance defiant. Say it. He let out a heavy, disappointed sigh, the same one she'd heard since she got a C in algebra at 12. He seems polite, educated. I'll give him that. But this, he gestured vaguely toward the house. It's not going to work long term. You're asking for trouble, for heartache, for kids who won't fit in anywhere. Sarah's throat burned. You're talking about race. I'm talking about reality. Reality is that I love him. Richard's jaw tightened as he looked away. Love doesn't fix everything. When Sarah went back inside, Marcus was helping Linda clear the plates. His eyes met hers instantly, reading the entire conversation in a single glance. He gave her the smallest nod, a silent message. I'm okay. We're okay. They left 30 minutes later. Once they were back on the highway, Marcus broke the silence. You all right? Staring at the passing lights? She replied. They said it out loud. Finally, he reached over, threading his fingers through hers. They're scared. Change is scary. They're not scared, she countered. They're ashamed. He didn't argue. He just squeezed her hand. They'll come around, he said quietly. Well, they won't. Either way, I'm not going anywhere. Sarah leaned her head against the cool glass of the window and closed her eyes. She didn't know it yet, but the calendar was already counting down. A night was coming when everything would be forced to change, not by words, but by water, wind, and a man who would refuse to leave them behind. The next 3 months passed in a careful rhythm. Sarah and Marcus didn't stop living. They kept their Friday night takeout tradition, binged the new season of that sci-fi show everyone was talking about, went for long runs along the Scioto River when the weather allowed. Marcus still sent her good morning texts at 6:42 a.m. sharp, never 6:41, never 6:43, because he knew she checked her phone right after her alarm. But something had shifted. Sarah called her mother twice a week instead of every other day. The conversations stayed light. Linda's garden club, the church bake sale, how the new pastor's sermons were a little too modern. Sarah never brought up Marcus first. Linda never asked. Richard texted once, a photo of the lawnmower he'd finally fixed, captioned, "Still runs like a dream." Sarah replied with a thumbs-up emoji and a heart. No follow-up. She told herself it was space, breathing room, time for them to come around on their own. Marcus never complained, never asked why she hadn't invited them to the agency's summer rooftop party, or why she hadn't shown them the new couch they bought together. He just kept showing up, steady, patient, the same way he debugged code. Observe, understand, Fix what's actually broken instead of what looks broken on the surface. One Saturday in September, they drove to Hocking Hills for the day, hiked Old Man's Cave Trail, ate sandwiches on a flat rock overlooking the waterfall. Kit took silly selfies with the golden leaves, framing them like a postcard. On the way home, Marcus turned down the radio. "I've been thinking," he said. Sarah tensed. "Yeah, I want to keep going to Maplewood. Not every weekend, but once a month maybe. Bring coffee. Help your dad with whatever project he's pretending he doesn't need help with. Sit on the porch with your mom, even if nobody says much." She looked at him. "Why?" "After what they said. Because they're your people, and you're my people. That means something." Sarah felt tears prick behind her eyes. "Not sad ones. Exactly. Grateful ones. You don't have to prove anything to them." "I'm not proving. I'm just being there. Sometimes presence is louder than arguments." She reached over and rested her hand on the back of his neck, fingers brushing the short fade of his hair. "Okay," she whispered. "Once a month." The first visit back was October 12th. They arrived at 10:30 a.m. with donuts from the good place and 2 lounge coffees. Richard was in the garage, tinkering with an old carburetor he swore he'd get running one of these days. Linda was sweeping the front porch, even though it didn't need sweeping. Marcus walked straight to the garage. "Morning. Mr. Whitaker, need an extra set of hands." Richard glanced up, surprised, then shrugged. "If you're offering." They worked side by side for almost 2 hours. Not much talking, mostly "hand me the 10mm and wash that gasket." But the silence wasn't hostile. It was functional, almost comfortable. Linda brought out lemonade at noon. She handed Marcus a glass first. "Thanks, Mrs. Whitaker." She nodded, small but real. Lunch was grilled cheese and tomato soup. No brisket-level production, but no forced formality either. They ate at the kitchen table. Richard asked Marcus one question about hybrid cloud architecture, something he'd read in the paper and didn't fully understand. Marcus explained it simply, no condescension. When they left that afternoon, Richard walked them to the car. "Drive safe," he said. Then, almost as an afterthought, "Thanks for the help with the carburetor." Marcus nodded. "Anytime, sir." In the car, Sarah let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. That was progress. Marcus smiled. That was a start. November came. Another visit. This time, Marcus brought a small space heater for the garage because Richard had complained about the cold last time. Linda asked Marcus if he liked pecan pie. He said yes. She promised to make one next time. December arrived with the first real snow. Sarah's parents invited them for Christmas Eve, not the full Christmas Day dinner with aunts and cousins, but Eve, just the 4 of them. Sarah cried in the shower the morning they were supposed to go. Happy tears, scared tears, hopeful tears. They arrived with wrapped gifts. A set of engraved kitchen knives for Linda. Marcus had noticed how dull hers were. A new cordless drill for Richard. He'd been eyeing one at Home Depot. Dinner was pot roast, mashed potatoes, rolls, the works. Conversation flowed haltingly, but it flowed. Linda asked about Marcus's parents. He told them his mom still volunteered at the free clinic twice a month. Richard nodded approvingly. After dessert, they sat in the living room with the tree lights on. No one mentioned the issue. No one apologized. But no one asked Sarah to choose either. At 10:30 p.m., Marcus excused himself to the porch for a quick call with his own family. Sarah followed a minute later. They stood, shoulder to shoulder, breath fogging in the cold. "They're trying," she said. "They are," he agreed. She leaned into him. "Thank you for not giving up on them." He kissed the top of her head. "I didn't give up on you." They come with the package. They went back inside. Linda had already poured nightcaps, small glasses of Bailey's. Richard raised his. "To family," he said quietly. Everyone drank. No one said anything more. They didn't need to. Outside, the snow kept falling, soft, steady, covering everything in quiet white. And somewhere far to the west, a low-pressure system was beginning to organize itself over the plains, gathering strength hour by hour, aiming straight for Ohio. No one in Maplewood was watching the Weather Channel that night. They were too busy feeling something close to peace. Asterisk. The storm didn't announce itself politely. It started the way most December storms in Ohio do. A gray smear across the western sky by mid-afternoon on the 23rd. The kind of cloud bank that makes you check your phone for alerts, even if you weren't planning to. The National Weather Service had been talking about it for days. A bomb cyclone developing over the Central Plains. Its Arctic air crashing into warm Gulf moisture. Winds forecast to gust 60 to 70 miles per hour near the center. Heavy snow north, freezing rain south, and flash flooding possible just about everywhere in between. Most people in Maplewood shrugged it off. They'd seen big storms before. Stocked the pantry, filled the gas cans, charged the flashlights. Life went on. Sarah and Marcus had planned to drive up Christmas Eve morning. They'd stay through the 26th, through the quiet family version of the holiday, then head back to Columbus. Marcus had even bought a small live tree for Sarah's parents' living room, something festive, but not overwhelming. It sat in a bucket of water on their balcony. Needles, still green and fragrant, at 4:17 p.m. on the 23rd. The first advisory popped up on phones. Winter storm warning until 7 p.m. Christmas Day. Travel not recommended after dark. Sarah texted her mom. Sarah, roads look bad tomorrow. Should we come tonight instead? Linda, don't be silly. It's just snow. We'll see you in the morning. Stay warm tonight. Sarah showed Marcus the exchange. He raised an eyebrow. Your mom still thinks this is a dusting. She always thinks it's a dusting until the power's out for 3 days. They decided to leave at dawn anyway. Better safe by 8 p.m. The wind was howling. Snow switched to sleet, then back to snow. Wet, heavy stuff that stuck to everything. Power flickered once, twice. The third time it went out for good. Sarah's phone buzzed with alerts. Flash flood watch upgraded to warning for parts of the county. Maplewood sat on a gentle rise, but the Whitaker house was near the bottom of a shallow valley where 2 creeks converged. Not usually a problem. Usually at 9:42 p.m., Sarah's phone rang. Caller ID. Mom Dot. She answered on the first ring. Mom. Sarah Linda's voice was tight, higher than normal. The tree in the front yard. It came down, right across the driveway and part of the porch roof. We can't get out. Richard tried the back door, but the deck is blocked too. Water's coming in through the laundry room window. Sarah was already on her feet. Marcus appeared in the doorway, keys in hand. How bad is the water? Sarah asked. Ankle deep in the basement already. The sump pump stopped when the power went. We tried to keep it from the furnace, but Mom, listen, we're coming. Right now, Sarah, the roads, we're coming. She hung up. Marcus was already pulling on boots. I'll drive, he said. You navigate. They grabbed coats, blankets, a flashlight, the first aid kit, a crowbar from the hall closet. Sarah didn't even know why they had one until that moment. And 2 5-gallon jugs of water Marcus kept in the trunk for emergencies. The live tree stayed on the balcony. The drive from Columbus to Maplewood normally took 75 minutes. That night, it took 2 hours and 14 minutes. Interstate 71 was a white tunnel of blowing snow. Plows hadn't been through in an hour. Cars abandoned on the shoulder like forgotten toys. Marcus kept both hands on the wheel, eyes locked ahead. Never faster than 35 miles per hour. Sarah called her parents every 10 minutes. They're okay, she reported after the 4th call. Still dry upstairs. Dad's trying to bail with buckets. Kes nodded. Didn't speak. Just drove. They exited onto the state route that led to Maplewood. Trees bent sideways in the wind. Power lines danced like jump ropes. A transformer exploded in blue-white light, half a mile ahead. Marcus didn't flinch. They reached Maple Lane at 12:03 a.m. The street was unrecognizable. Snowdrifts 4 feet high against mailboxes. Branches everywhere. The Whitaker house sat dark, except for the faint glow of a battery lantern moving behind the curtains. The front yard. Oak, the one that had shaded every family photo for 30 years, lay across the driveway like a felled giant. Its root ball had torn up half the lawn. The porch roof sagged under the weight. One support beam cracked clean through. Marcus parked as close as he could, killed the engine, grabbed the crowbar and flashlight. "Stay here until I see how bad it is," he told Sarah. She shook her head. No chance. They fought through the wind together. Richard opened the front door a crack. His face was pale, hair wild. "Okay, Marcus, Mr. Whitaker, let's get you out." Marcus didn't wait for permission. He waded through knee-deep water that had pooled where the lawn used to slope away. The tree trunk was massive, 3 feet in diameter at the base. No chainsaw, no winch, just muscle, leverage, and whatever nature would allow. He jammed the crowbar under the trunk, near the porch, found a fulcrum point on a broken concrete planter. Pushed. Nothing. He adjusted. Tried again. The trunk shifted an inch, then 2. Sarah ran to help, pushing with her shoulder against the bark. Richard joined them, grunting. Linda appeared at the door with another flashlight. Inch by inch, they levered the trunk sideways, just enough to clear the front steps. Inside, the house smelled of wet drywall and panic. Water swirled in the foyer. The Christmas tree lay on its side, ornaments shattered across the floor. Marcus didn't stop. He went straight to the basement stairs. "Show me the furnace and the breaker panel." Richard led the way, flashlight beam bouncing. The basement was a lake black water up to the 3rd step. The furnace hissed faintly. Pilot still lit, but the blower was dead. Carbon monoxide risk if it kept running without ventilation. Marcus shut off the gas valve by feel. Then he waded in, found the main breaker, killed power to the whole house just to be safe. "Upstairs," he said. "Now, all of you." They climbed. Linda was shaking. Richard kept glancing at Marcus like he was seeing him for the first time. In the living room, they spread blankets on the floor near the fireplace. Marcus got a small fire going with logs from the hearth and pages from an old phone book. Warmth spread slowly. Sarah sat beside her mother, arm around her shoulders. Marcus checked every window, every door, secured what he could with duct tape and a spare board from the garage he dragged through the snow. Then he sat across from Richard. No one spoke for a long minute. Finally, Richard's voice, rough, low. "You didn't have to come." Marcus looked at him evenly. "Yeah, I did." Richard swallowed. Look at the fire. Outside, the wind screamed on. Inside, for the first time in a long time, no one was pretending everything was fine. The fire in the hearth had settled into a steady, low crackle. Orange light flickered across the living room walls, painting long shadows over the toppled Christmas tree and the scattered shards of glass ornaments. The wind outside still battered the house, but inside, the temperature had climbed from bone-chilling to nearly uncomfortable. Sarah sat on the floor with her back against the couch, knees drawn up, one arm around her mother. Linda hadn't spoken much since they'd gotten everyone upstairs, occasionally wiping her eyes with the sleeve of her flannel robe. Richard paced slowly in front of the fireplace 3 steps one way, 3 steps back like a man trying to outwalk his own thoughts. Every few minutes, he stopped to listen to the house groan under the wind's pressure. Marcus knelt near the hearth, feeding small pieces of broken chair leg into the fire to keep it alive without wasting the good logs too quickly. His coat and boots were still on. Water had wicked up his jeans to mid-calf, but he hadn't complained once. At 1:40 a.m., Sarah's phone finally caught a weak signal bar. She tried 911 again. This time, it rang. Maplewood Emergency Services. What's your emergency? Sarah explained quickly. Elderly parents, trapped. Trio on the house. Flooding basement. No power. Possible structural damage. The dispatcher was calm, professional, exhausted sounding. We've got multiple calls in the valley. Roads are impassable down lines. Flooding on Route 42 and the creek overflow on Maple. Crews are working priority. Medical emergencies first, then life safety. We'll get to you as soon as we can. Stay warm. Stay upstairs. Don't go near windows. Can you confirm everyone is uninjured? Yes. Just shaken and cold. Help is coming. Stay on the line if you can. The call dropped 30 seconds later. Sarah looked up. Everyone had heard. Richard stopped pacing. How long? They didn't say. Soon as they can. Marcus stood, brushed soot from his hands. Then we wait smart. Conserve heat, conserve phone batteries. I'll check the windows again, make sure nothing's leaking worse. He moved methodically through the first floor, flashlight beam sweeping corners. In the kitchen, he found a slow drip from the ceiling where the porch roof had pulled away from the house. He dragged the stock pot under it, then used paint-to-rest tape and a plastic trash bag to seal the worst gap he could reach. Back in the living room, he sat on the floor across from Richard. Sir, the basement's going to keep filling unless the rain lets up. Furnace is off. Water heater too. No carbon monoxide risk right now, but we should keep the fire small and the flue open. Richard nodded slowly. Then, quieter. You knew what to do down there. Shut the gas. Found the main breaker blind. Most people would have panicked. Marcus shrugged one shoulder. Power goes out a lot in Cleveland. You learn quick or you freeze. A beat of silence. Richard rubbed his jaw. I owe you an apology. Marcus didn't interrupt, just waited. Said things, thought things, about you, about this. Richard gestured vaguely between Marcus and Sarah. I told myself it was concern, protection, but it wasn't just that. Linda lifted her head, eyes glistening. Richard, no, let me say it. He looked straight at Marcus. I was afraid of what people would say, what it meant for our family name, our church, our little circle here, okay? I looked at you and saw every stereotype I grew up hearing instead of the man standing in front of me. Marcus held his gaze. I've heard worse, okay? And I've heard it from people who weren't half as honest as you being right now. Richard exhaled hard, like something heavy had shifted inside his chest. You drove through hell to get here, risked your life. Didn't ask for thanks, didn't throw what I said back in my face. You just showed up. Marcus glanced at Sarah, then back at Richard. She's my family. That makes you mine too. Even when it's hard. Linda reached out and touched Marcus's arm lightly. Briefly, the first time she'd initiated contact since that first Sunday dinner. Thank you, she whispered, for not giving up on us. Marcus gave a small nod. We're not out yet. Let's focus on staying warm and dry till help comes. They spent the next hours in quiet shifts, feeding the fire, checking windows, passing around a single bottle of water. Sarah curled against Marcus's side. He draped an arm around her without thinking. Richard eventually sat down close enough that their shoulders almost touched. Around 4:20 a.m., the wind began to drop. Not gone, but less vicious. The sleet had turned back to snow lighter, fluffier. The house creaked less. Sarah's phone buzzed. Once a text from emergency services. Crews en route to your area. ETA 6290 men. Stay put. She read it aloud. When they get here. When they get here, I want you to know something before anyone else walks through that door. Marcus waited. You're welcome here. Not just tonight. Just because you saved us. Because you're good for my daughter. Yeah. Because you're a better man than I gave you credit for. Marcus's throat worked. He didn't trust himself to speak right away. Finally, that means more than you know, sir. Richard reached out slow. The libertine offered his hand. Not a testing grip this time. A real one. Marcus took it, held it a second longer than necessary. Outside, faint red and blue lights began to pierce the snow haze at the end of Maple Lane. Help was coming, but something more important had already arrived. The first sign of hope was a slash of red light cutting through the swirling snow. A heavy-duty fire rescue truck, its engine a low rumble against the storm, stopped where the street disappeared under a mountain of white. 2 firefighters in full gear leaped out, followed by a paramedic with a large medical bag. Then, a county utility truck with chains on its tires crawled into view, its headlights bouncing like nervous eyes. Richard was already at the front door when the lead firefighter, a woman with snow caked on her helmet, shouted up the buried steps. Whitaker residence. Is everyone okay in there? Richard shoved the door open wider. We're all upstairs. No injuries, but the basements flooded badly. The team moved with practiced efficiency. Their first priority was the structure. The giant oak had cracked the porch roof, but a quick check confirmed the main bearing walls were solid. One firefighter got on the radio, calling for a chainsaw crew to clear the massive trunk from the driveway. Another went to work stringing temporary lights, hooking them up to the truck's generator. Suddenly, the living room was flooded with bright white light, chasing away the shadows and revealing just how exhausted and pale everyone looked. The paramedic started checking vitals. Linda's hands were like ice, so she was immediately wrapped in a thick thermal blanket. Richard initially waved one away, but then accepted it without a word when the paramedic insisted. Sarah stayed close to Marcus. He had stepped back, giving the professionals their space, but his eyes never stopped moving, tracking every action, ready to help if needed. One of the firefighters, a tall man with a graying beard, seemed to grasp the full picture. He approached Marcus quietly while the others were boarding up a broken window. You the one who got here first? He asked. Marcus just gave a single nod. The firefighter clapped him firmly on the shoulder. Good man. The roads were damn near impossible. You saved them a long night or worse. Marcus didn't reply, just offered another small, quiet nod. By a little after 6 in the morning, the immediate crisis was under control. A portable pump was chugging away in the basement, its hose snaking out through the snow to the street, spitting out a steady stream of water. The generator hummed a constant, reassuring tune outside, powering a few essential circuits. The air inside smelled of wet carpet and diesel fumes, but the house no longer felt like it was sinking into the earth. The crew leader came back into the living room to address the family. We've got a warming shelter set up at the high school gym if you want to go, she said. Power's likely going to be out until tomorrow afternoon at the earliest. The roads are still dicey, but we can get you there safely. Richard looked at Linda, who then looked at Sarah and Marcus. It was Linda who spoke first, her voice quiet but firm. We'd rather stay. It's safe. It's safe enough for now, the crew leader confirmed. We'll be back to check in a few hours. Keep the fire going low, keep the windows sealed, and don't run any gas appliances until the power is restored and everything's been inspected. They left with a round of handshakes, the firmest ones reserved for Marcus. As the heavy door closed, the house settled into a strange, post-crisis quiet. The roaring wind and crashing sounds were gone, replaced by the hum of the generator and the gurgle of the pump. Sarah's phone, finally plugged into a charger running off the generator, lit up. A cascade of missed calls and frantic texts from relatives and neighbors who had seen the flashing lights filled the screen. She silenced it and put it down. There would be time for that later. Linda slowly stood up, the thermal blanket still draped around her shoulders like a royal cloak. She walked directly to Marcus and stopped right in front of him. Without a single word, she pulled him into a hug. It wasn't a polite, tentative embrace. It was tight, grateful, and deeply motherly. For a split second, Marcus stiffened in surprise. Then he relaxed and carefully wrapped his arms around her. When she finally pulled back, her eyes were wet with unshed tears. I was wrong. she said, her voice clear and simple, about so many things. I'm sorry, Marcus. He swallowed, looking overwhelmed. Okay, you don't have to. I do. She interrupted gently. She turned her gaze to Richard. You both do. Richard stepped forward. His voice was rough, scraped raw by the cold and a sleepless night. I've spent too many years thinking I was protecting this family by keeping things sane, safe, familiar. He locked eyes with Marcus. Tonight, you showed me what real protection looks like. It's not about words or warnings, it's about action. He extended his hand, but this time it was different. It wasn't the handshake of strangers or even of reluctant future in-laws. This was a handshake between two men who had faced down a crisis together, a night that could have ended in tragedy. Marcus took his hand. Richard didn't let go right away. You're welcome in this house, always, he said, his voice thick with emotion. Not because you earned it tonight, though God knows you did, but because you are part of us now. Sarah will have you, then we're proud to have you too. Sarah felt a lump form in her throat. She reached out and took Marcus's other hand, lacing her fingers through his. He looked down at her, a world of emotion passing between them, then back at her parents. I love your daughter, he said, his voice quiet but steady. More than anything, it's not changing. A real, genuine smile broke through Linda's tears. Then come and sit. All of us. The sun's coming up. They all moved to the couch, the same one Sarah had napped on as a child during holiday visits. Richard stoked the fire, bringing a warm glow back to the room. Linda, ever the hostess, managed to find a tin of shortbread cookies that had miraculously survived the chaos. They passed them around, eating in a comfortable silence at first. Outside, the snow had finally stopped falling. A pale winter sunrise was beginning to paint the horizon, turning the pristine white drifts into shades of soft pink and shimmering gold. Sarah leaned her head against Marcus's shoulder, feeling the solid warmth of him, the sheer reality of him being there. He responded by pressing a gentle kiss to her temple. There were no more grand speeches, no tearful, drawn-out confessions beyond what had already been said. There was just this, just for people utterly exhausted but profoundly alive, sitting together in a house that had been pushed to its breaking point and hadn't broken. The apology hadn't been dramatic, and the acceptance hadn't been loud, but it was real. Okay. And as the new day dawned, it was more than enough. Thanks for watching. Christmas morning dawned, cold and quiet. Okay. The sky above Maplewood was a pale, washed-out blue, the kind that follows a storm when the air has been scrubbed clean. Snow lay thick on every roof, every branch, every mailbox soft and unbroken, except for the narrow path the rescue crew had cleared the night before. The generator still hummed outside the Whitaker house, a steady, mechanical heartbeat keeping the lights on and the furnace from freezing. Inside, the living room smelled of wood smoke, damp plaster, and the faint cinnamon of Linda's shortbread cookies. The toppled Christmas tree had been propped upright against Hilted, missing half its ornaments, but standing. Someone, Marcus, of course, had swept the broken glass into a neat pile in the corner. Sarah woke first, curled on the couch under a quilt her grandmother had made decades ago. Marcus was beside her, one arm draped protectively across her waist, even in sleep. His breathing was slow and even. She watched him for a long minute, tracing the line of his jaw with her eyes, marveling at how peaceful he looked after a night that should have broken anyone. She slipped out carefully, tucked the quilt around him, and padded to the kitchen. Linda was already there, boiling water on a camp stove they kept for camping trips that never happened. She looked up when Sarah entered. "Morning, honey." "Morning, Mom." Sarah hugged her from behind. "You okay?" Linda nodded against her daughter's cheek. "It's better than okay. Grateful." They made instant coffee in mismatched mugs. "'Kay, no cream, no sugar, just warmth." They carried cups back to the living room and sat on the floor near the fireplace, knees touching like when Sarah was small. Richard appeared a few minutes later, hair sticking up, eyes red-rimmed from lack of real sleep. He accepted a mug without a word and lowered himself beside his wife. Marcus stirred soon after. He sat up slowly, rubbed his face, then smiled when he saw the three of them already gathered. "Coffee?" Linda asked, already pouring a fourth mug. "Please." He joined them in a loose circle on the rug. No one rushed to speak. The silence felt earned. After a while, Richard cleared his throat. "I called Pastor Mike last night, this morning, around 4. Told him what happened. The tree, the flood, coming through that mess to get here." He looked at Marcus. He asked if he could stop by later today. "Bring some food from the church pantry. Check on the house." I told him yes. "And I told him I'd like him to meet you properly." Marcus raised an eyebrow, surprised. Richard continued. "He's known Sarah since she was in diapers. He's family to us. I want him to know the man who's become family to her too." Sarah felt her eyes sting. She reached for Marcus's hand. He laced their fingers without looking away from her father. Linda spoke next, voice soft. "Q, we're not going to pretend last night erased everything we said before. Words hurt, and they linger, but actions." She looked straight at Marcus. Your actions last night spoke the truth louder than anything we ever said. We see you now, really see you." Marcus exhaled slowly. "I never needed you to see me the way the world sees me. I just needed you to see me the way Sarah does." Richard nodded. "We're getting there." They sat with that for a minute. Then Linda stood. "It's Christmas. The power's still out. The basement's a swamp. Half the porch is gone, but we're here. Together. That's more than enough." She disappeared into the kitchen and returned with a small, slightly dented tin she'd pulled from the back of a cupboard. Inside, her famous pecan pie, the one she'd promised Marcus months ago. The edges were cracked from the tree impact, but the center was perfect. "I saved it for next time," she said, setting it on the coffee table. "Guess next time is now." Marcus laughed, quiet, genuine. "Looks better than any bakery version." They ate slices with plastic forks, straight from the tin. No plates, no ceremony. Just fingers sticky with caramel and quiet murmurs of appreciation. Later, Pastor Mike arrived with 2 casseroles, a thermos of hot chocolate, and half a dozen teenagers from the youth group carrying chainsaws and tarps. They cleared more debris, boarded windows properly, pumped the last of the basement water. Neighbors trickled by to bring in blankets, coffee, offers to help. By afternoon, the house felt less like a disaster site and more like a home again. When the sun began to drop, Sarah and Marcus stepped onto the porch, what was left of it. The air was crisp, the snow glittering. Marcus pulled her close. "Think they're ready for us to come back for New Year's?" he asked. Sarah smiled against his coat. "I think they're ready for a lot more than that." Inside, Richard watched them through the window. Linda came up beside him. "He's a good man," she said. Richard nodded slowly. "Yeah, he is." They didn't say anything else. They didn't need to. The story didn't end with a perfect reconciliation or a tearful group hug on national television. It ended the way real change usually does, quietly, imperfectly, one small choice at a time. A seat saved at the table, name spoken without hesitation, a door left open even when the wind howls. Love hadn't erased the past, but it had made the future possible. And sometimes, that's the biggest miracle of all.